A used iPhone 14 sells for roughly $500. So does a bolt-action rifle that survived 2 world wars, crossed 3 continents, and outlasted the empire that built it. That is not a tragedy. That is the most beautiful anomaly left in the American firearms market. And nowhere is that anomaly more alive than Fort Smith, Arkansas. A town built on frontier justice. A town where Judge Isaac Parker once sentenced 160 men to the gallows. Today, under the same sky, inside the sprawling halls of K. Rodgers Park, dealers still lay out the mechanical ghosts of the last century on folding tables for under $500. The great surplus pipelines are running dry. The window is closing fast. These are the last 5 rifles you can still walk out with for the price of a cracked smartphone. And they will not stay this cheap for long. Number 5, and it opens with a question that has haunted firearms engineers for over a century. What if you never had to rotate a bolt again? In 1895, Ferdinand Ritter von Mannlicher answered that question with a rifle so mechanically alien that most American shooters today have never even seen one function in person. The Steyr Mannlicher M95, a straight-to-pull bolt action. You do not lift and rotate, you simply pull straight back. A helical camming groove buried inside the bolt carrier does the rotating for you, invisibly, in a fraction of a second. In theory, a trained soldier could cycle this action faster than any turn-bolt rifle on the same battlefield. That mechanical elegance kept this rifle in active service from the trenches of World War I through the Austrian police forces of 1955. 60 years of continuous deployment. That is not luck. That is engineering. The cinematic experience of firing an M95 carbine is unforgettable. The short barrel amplifies the concussive 8x56mm rimmed cartridge into something that feels less like a rifle and more like a controlled detonation against your shoulder. Here is the deal breaker. Without its proprietary fixed clips, this rifle becomes a single-shot curiosity, and those clips are becoming nearly impossible to find. Budget accordingly. Current price at regional shows, $205 to $470. Number 4, and this one carries a scar that no other rifle on this list can claim. In 1945, as the Pacific War drew to a close, General Douglas MacArthur issued a quiet but profound order. Before Japanese soldiers formally surrendered their rifles, they were to grind off the imperial chrysanthemum stamped on the receiver ring. That flower was the personal seal of Emperor Hirohito. To surrender it intact would have been a humiliation too deep for the Japanese military tradition to absorb. So they erased it. And in doing so, they permanently divided every Type 99 rifle in existence into 2 categories. The ones that were captured in combat with the mum intact, and the ones that came home with a raw, ground scar where the flower used to be. The ones with the scar are what you will find under $500 at Fort Smith, and they are still extraordinary. The Type 99 was engineered to a standard of precision that Japan could not sustain as the war turned against them. Early production models feature chrome-lined bores and flawless machining. You can read the industrial collapse of an entire empire simply by comparing an early Nagoya arsenal rifle to a late-war substitute standard model. Same design, completely different soul. Here is the deal breaker. 7.7 by 58mm Arisaka ammunition is produced sporadically by boutique manufacturers only. This rifle will cost you more to feed than it costs to buy. Current price at regional shows, $300 to $475. Number 3, and this one comes with a warning that has divided the firearms community for 50 years. The Spanish Model 1916 began its life as a direct descendant of the rifle that humiliated American forces during the Spanish-American War. The Model 1893 Mauser, a design so superior that United States Army officers filed formal battlefield reports demanding their own troops be rearmed immediately. The 1916 was its carbine-born grandson. It fought in the deserts of North Africa during the Rif War. It survived the brutality of the Spanish Civil War. And when Franco's Spain needed to modernize without spending money it did not have, armorers at the Oviedo Arsenal made a decision that still sparks arguments today. They re-bored the barrels. They cut the chambers. They re-rifled the steel. And they stamped the receivers with the words Cal 7.62 and sent them back to the Guardia Civil chambered for .308 Winchester. Here is the mechanic's reality. The original small ring action was designed for a cartridge operating at roughly 51,000 pounds per square inch. Commercial .308 runs at 62,000. Independent destructive testing at the HP. White Laboratory found the action did not fail catastrophically until pressures reached 98,000 pounds per square inch. The steel held, but the debate never ended. Here is the deal breaker. You should never feed this rifle full power commercial .308 hunting loads. Stick to 7.62 by 51 NATO surplus only. The savings on the hardware disappear fast if you ignore that rule. Current price at regional shows, $360 to $450. Number 2, and this one is a ghost wearing someone else's face. Pick up a Turkish Mauser at K. Rodgers Park and look carefully at the receiver ring. Underneath the deeply stamped crescent moon and the Ankara Arsenal mark, you can sometimes still feel the ghost of the original Imperial German proof marks that were scrubbed away by Turkish armorers in the 1930s. What you are holding is not simply a Turkish rifle. It is a German Model 98 service rifle that survived the trenches of World War I, crossed the Bosphorus, was disassembled down to its last component, rebuilt around a new 29-inch barrel, re-stamped with the identity of a brand new republic, and returned to service as if its entire previous life had never happened. That is the Turkish standardization program in a single sentence. A nation inheriting the shattered logistical remnants of the Ottoman Empire, refusing to discard perfectly engineered German steel, and transforming chaos into uniformity at the Ankara Arsenal. The mechanic's insight is straightforward. The Mauser 98 action that forms the core of this rifle is widely considered the strongest bolt-action design ever produced. Front-locking lugs, superior gas handling, an external claw extractor with a controlled feed geometry that borders on mechanical perfection. Here is the deal breaker. The heavy scrubbing of German markings makes provenance research nearly impossible. If you care about matching numbers and historical documentation, this rifle will frustrate you deeply. Current price at regional shows, $325 to $475. Number 1, and nothing on this list, nothing in this entire market, comes close to what this rifle represents in 2026, $149. That is the current floor price for a centerfire bolt-action military rifle at regional shows across the American heartland. Not a rimfire plinker, not a single-shot break action. A full-power 6.5 by 52 millimeter Carcano, a rifle that invaded Abyssinia with Mussolini's armies in 1935, was abandoned when those armies were expelled 6 years later, and then spent the next 8 decades sitting in rudimentary Ethiopian armories while the world outside completely forgot it existed. And then Royal Tiger Imports found them. What came back to America was not clean. It was not pretty. It was something far more extraordinary. These rifles arrived carrying 80 years of African storage on their steel. Severe dents, deep gouges, missing hardware. Bluing worn down to bare pitted metal on some examples, while others retain nearly half their original finish as if time had treated them unevenly and without logic. But look closer at the wood, because carved into the stocks of these rifles, scratched by hand over decades of militia service, are small silver thumb tags and rudimentary crosses. Ethiopia's population is roughly divided between Christian and Muslim communities, and the men who carried these Carcanos through the highlands left their faith behind in the grain of the walnut. You are not buying a rifle, you are buying a reliquary. The mechanic's reality is equally compelling. The Carcano action features a 6-round fixed clip system directly related to the design that Midland Mannlicher pioneered in Europe. The rotating bolt locks into the receiver with a geometry that Italian engineers refined across 4 decades of continuous service. It is not a Mauser. It does not need to be. It was built for a different kind of war, on a different continent, by a different industrial tradition entirely. At $149 to $299, the Ethiopian Carcano M1891 is not just the most shocking value left at any American gun show in 2026. It is the most beautiful proof that history has not finished surprising us yet. 5 rifles, 5 different wars, 5 different continents, and every single one of them available today for less than the price of a used smartphone. The straight-pull ghost of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Pacific War trophy with the Emperor's seal ground into oblivion. The controversial Guardia Civil carbine that armorers converted with industrial frugality and a prayer. The German receiver wearing a Turkish identity and a crescent moon. And the Italian rifle that slept in an African armory for 80 years and came home carrying the faith of the men who carried it. This is what the end of an era looks like. Not a dramatic collapse. Not a single moment of finality. Just folding tables at K. Rodgers Park in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and a dwindling number of rifles that the market has not yet decided to value correctly. That window is nearly closed. If any of these 5 rifles belong in your collection, the time to act is not next year. It is not next month. It is the next time you walk through those doors at a regional gun show and see one sitting on a table with a price tag that makes absolutely no logical sense. Buy it. Because the generation of buyers who ignored this market will spend the rest of their lives explaining to their grandchildren why they did not. If this kind of history matters to you, subscribe. New videos every week. No fluff, no filler. Just the rifles, the history, and the truth about what they are actually worth.